Okay, so we're diving into learning how to actually create some primitive shapes now, the building blocks of all design. So we have this document called Creating Primitive Shapes, and let's dive straight in. So I'm going to start with the first shape, which is a rectangle tool. Now you'll see that you have some primitive shapes here together. So if I hold down that tool, you'll see that we have rounded rectangle, ellipse, polygon, star. And we have this little tear off strip here. So I'm going to click on that and it's going to tear this off as a toolbar just for convenience. So I'm going to zoom in here. And let's start with the rectangle tool. So if I just simply click and drag, you can see that I create a rectangle. No rocket science there. By the way, I've set my fill up here to none and my stroke to black. If I hold down Shift and I drag, I create a perfect square. Remember to always release your mouse or your trackpad before you release your key. If I hold down Alt on Windows or Option on a Mac and I drag from the center out, I draw the object from the center out. If I hold down Shift, it will be a perfect square from the center out. And then if I draw a rectangle, and then I go to these little inside corner circles and I drag, I can make it a rounded rectangle. So that makes this rounded rectangle tool kind of redundant. It's a legacy tool, really. And you can also make individual corners rounded, but we'll deal with that in another video. Let's have a look at ellipses then. So we're skipping over rounded rectangle. It's not redundant. Ellipse tool, if I click and drag, I can make ellipses of any shape. If I hold down Shift and drag, I make a perfect circle. If I hold down Alt, I can draw from the center out. And if I add Shift to that, it'll be a perfect circle from the center out. If I draw an ellipse, and then after releasing, I go to this little handle here, I can drag to make pie shapes. The polygon tool, that's this one here. If I drag, it automatically draws from the center out. I don't have to hold down Alt or Option. If I drag out, it makes a polygon. If I hold down Shift and drag, it balances the shoulders. If I drag out and I use my up arrow, I can add sides. If I use my down arrow, I can subtract sides. If I draw a polygon, let's make it normal sided, and release, and then I drag on this little circle, I can round the corners. Also remember with all these tools, if you just choose the tool and click, you actually have the settings here that you can dial in specifically and then press OK. However, it's not very visual. It's more of a statistical way of doing it, and you might need to position it afterwards and make some changes. All right, so that's the polygon tool. Let's move up to the star tool. So for the star tool, click and drag to make a star. Okay, this one just needs to be adjusted. Okay, star tool. If I hold down Shift and do the same, it balances the shoulders. If I make a star and use my up and down arrows while I'm making it, I can add or subtract sides. Or I can drag on this little widget here to add or subtract sides after I've made it. If you make a star, let's make a simple star, and then you drag on these little rounded corner circles, you can round the inner and outer points. And finally, if you make a star and then you hold down Control or Command, you can change the outer radius. You can also do that once you've made it by going to these hollow circles to change the inner radius and outer radius. All right, so those are all of your closed path primitives. This last one here, the flare tool, is just forget about it. Don't ever use it. It's absolute rubbish. I don't know why Adobe have not got rid of it long ago. All right, so those are our open path primitives. Now we move to our closed path primitives. Now we move to our open path primitives. So we'll start with the line segment tool. I'll tear this toolbar off. And this is pretty much just click and drag to make a line, shift, click and drag to snap to 45-degree angles. And that's it. The arc tool, click and drag to make the default arc, shift, click and drag. So if I start here and shift, click and drag, it constrains it to 45 degrees. If I hold down Alt or Option and drag, I draw from the center out. Okay. If I draw an arc, and while I'm drawing it, I use my up arrow or down arrow, I can change how convex or concave it is. Okay, spiral, and just click and drag to make a spiral. If you hold down Shift and click and drag, you're going to constrain it to 45 degrees. If you're making it and you use your up and down arrows, you can add or subtract segments. And finally, if you are making it, I'll just add some segments, and you hold down Control or Command, you can change the decay. Okay, so that's just the primitive shape. So let's see a practical application of this using a familiar logo and just primitive shapes. So let's see how we can do this. Let's start with the eyes. So I'm going to zoom in and hold down Alt because I'm drawing from the center out. Let's make the eye there. Then Selection tool to make a copy to the other side. I'm going to hold down Alt or Option and start dragging, and then Shift to constrain to horizontal. Okay, that's my eyes. Then let's do the head. So I'm going to start over here, Alt, drag, because I'm drawing from the center out. Let's go like that. And then I'm going to take this little handle here and do that. All right, let's do the body. So I'm going to take the rectangle tool and I'm going to draw a rectangle like that. And now I want to round the corners, but only the bottom corners. So then I can't just use my selection tool or this tool. I have to switch to my direct selection tool, click away, and then click on this point and hold down Shift and click on this point. So I'm only affecting those bottom 2 points, and then I'm going to drag that up. All right, and then let's do the arms. So I need some guides here to help me. So I'm just going to drag a guide from my ruler like that and like that. And then I'm going to take my rectangle tool and drag like that. And now I'm going to round those corners. Okay. And I need that black outline, and then Alt to make a copy, Shift to keep it in line to the other side. I can use this same shape for the legs. So I'm going to hold down Alt or Option to make a copy, and I'm just going to drag a copy down here like that. And then another one holding Alt to make a copy and Shift. And don't worry about the overlaps at the moment. We're just trying to get the basic shapes. And then here we have these antenna. So I'm going to just create a rectangle over here, kind of like that. I'm going to zoom right into it, round it up like that. And let's position it, and we'll rotate it. And let's just zoom in a little bit, see if we can improve that. Okay, so that in there like that. Okay, that's close enough. And then we need to mirror this across to the other side. So the easiest way is object, transform, reflect, copy. And then we'll just drag the copy across, hold shift so that it's in line, so that we've got that going on. So now we've got our Android logo nicely organized. I'm going to clear my guides. So view, guides, clear guides. And then I'm just going to select the whole thing, and I'm going to give it a nice greeny color with no stroke. Ooh, and my eyes need, okay, so I need to arrange this to the back. Center back, and let's just select those eyes and make them white. All right, so this is not a finished construction, but you haven't learned yet how to use the Pathfinder to join shapes together. So if I just press Control or Command Y, we can see that the shapes are still overlapping in that, but this is the beginning of using primitives to create more complex shapes. You will learn how to combine these into one finished logo eventually, but give it a go and just play around with the primitives. Get used to using them as a starting point for your design work.